What's the best food source of vitamin C? What? Oranges. And I think most people would say that. Kiwi's as good as an orange. Strawberries and red pepper are even better than oranges. Hot peppers are supposedly the best. But the orange industry has done a very good job of convincing us that vitamin C in orange juice. So, and again, what's the best berry for antioxidant? Blueberry. Wrong. Blackberries. But again, we have this ingrained. So I think sometimes when people get too, and pomegranates actually have twice as much antioxidant potential than blueberries. So sometimes people get too carried away with the specific food and the specific nutrient, especially with supplements. If you look at the data on supplements compared to food, there are very few supplements that have data to support them. Let me give you one example. Beta-carotene. Many years ago, people noticed that people who had higher levels of beta-carotene in their blood had a lower risk of cancer and heart disease. Great idea, let's put it in a pill. There were two very large studies, ATBC trial and the CARET trial, that looked at beta-carotene supplements and the risk of heart disease. What they found was there wasn't any benefit. Actually, in smokers and former smokers, there was an increased risk of mortality in people who took the beta-carotene supplements. Blew everybody away. And nobody knows exactly why. It may be that beta-carotene turns into a pro-oxidant instead of an antioxidant when people take it in large amounts, or that it's inhibiting other beneficial carotenoid compounds when you're just taking one of them. There are hundreds of them. So one of the messages here, food in terms of its potential to improve health is far, far greater than any supplement. Weight is an issue in this country. Everybody's aware of that. Well, what I've talked about in terms of a dietary pattern, can that affect weight? And yes, it can. The Mayo Clinic diet is based on a principle called energy density, a fancy term. If you think about what determines how much you eat, it's not calories. You don't say, I've had 500 calories and now I'm done. You eat until you're full because of the volume or weight of food that you eat, right? So if you can eat foods that have a lot of volume and weight and not a lot of calories, theoretically you can get satisfied and manage your weight better. So this is where I wish I did have my slides. It's illustrated best. There's the same amount of calories in 1 1/3 sticks of butter as there is in 10 or 11 heads of lettuce or 35 cups of green beans. And if you see that graphically, so eating a plant-based diet with generous amounts of vegetables and fruits, you can actually eat more, but get in less calories. And that's the basis of our dietary program. On our weight management program, we recommend all the fresh or frozen fruits and vegetables that people want to eat. It becomes a practical limit. You're not going to overdose on broccoli. One of the most important things we can do is to make healthy lifestyle changes, but that's challenging. However, I think people underestimate their ability to make these changes. One example I use with people is milk. Years ago, people drank whole milk, and when you first talk to them about drinking 2% or skim, they say, oh, I can't drink that. It tastes like water. But they stick with it, they get used to it, and they go back to whole milk, and it's, boy, that tastes like cream. So before we make a change, it seems imposing, it seems challenging. But if you stick with it, you approach it with a positive attitude, it can become part of your routine, and then you're off and running. Number one, it starts with attitude. And I think many people here, especially people in the mind-body area, the stress management, attitude is so important. What I see in my office when people come in for weight management or nutrition counseling, they come in and their head's hanging down. And it's, I gotta go on a diet. You know, does it sound familiar? What does that say? It's negative, it's restrictive, and therefore it's going to be temporary. Diet is a 4-letter word. And I think many people here are talking about lifestyle change. And in terms of attitude, if you approach it with a positive attitude, it can make all the difference in the world. People tell me when I was more active, when I was eating better, when I weighed less, I felt better. And people should listen to that. It can improve your quality of life right away, not only long-term health risks. Another important point is eating well versus eating healthy. And some people think those are mutually exclusive. I don't. I beg to differ, and I think the meal you're being served today here is an example. We came out with the Mayo Clinic Diet Cookbook a couple of years ago. We were fortunate. We won a James Beard Award for that to try and show people that eating well and eating healthy aren't mutually exclusive, that you can eat a practical, enjoyable, and sustainably healthy diet and enjoy it as well. Another important point is, people do all or nothing, and it's a New Year's resolution. Part of that, one of the ways to get around that is quality versus quantity for foods. So some foods you eat for quantity. And as you can tell from what I'm talking about, fruits and vegetables, although I'd argue that those are also quality foods, those are foods that you don't have to worry about the amount that you eat. Other foods, you may want to look more for quality and limit the amount you eat. Things such as cheese, alcohol perhaps, meat. So instead of saying, and chocolate is another example. I have patients who say, well, I'm going to go on a diet. I love chocolate, but I'm never going to eat it again. Right. 2 weeks later, the 1 pound bag of M&Ms comes out and away they go. So instead of focusing on quantity with those foods, as you're changing, focus on quality. Instead of having a Velveeta cheese, a large amount of cheese, get the best quality French cheese you can find and enjoy it. In the future, with regard to nutrition, I hope we can get back to the basics, yet integrate it into our modern society. And what do I mean by that? Eat real food, mostly plant foods, but it's okay to have some conveniences, chopped up vegetables, chopped up greens, for example, to make it easier to eat those real foods. I think the more we can get away from some of the processed foods, some of the additives, some of the less healthy choices, then we can improve many things in our society. It's been estimated that if people adopted a healthy diet, they could reduce the risk of heart disease and cancer by a tremendous amount. So I'm optimistic for the future if we can make those changes.